All right. Welcome to Driving with Slip. It is April 12th. I'm on the way back home from softball. Ian Shawshanks, which is the team I'm on right now, took a 10-5 victory against Albert Einsteins. I actually won a championship when I was with Albert, but that was a couple of years ago at this point. But definitely fun team. Anyway, I want to hop on and just talk about the Braves. You know, at the beginning, on Friday, you heard me talk about how the Braves can win this series. And they were able to win a Bryce Elder start that looked fairly terrible, all things considered. He walked a lot of people. He had to get out some jams, and it didn't look promising, especially based on how he was looking at the beginning of the season. And this is where we come into play at this point where the Braves have 2.5 reliable starters. Right now, they have Chris Sale, who I would say is reliable. A combination of Elder, Ronaldo Lopez, and Grant Holmes makes the 1.5. That's not going to cut it. I don't believe that the Braves can sustain a season with how the starting pitchers look rocky. I'd have to look into the numbers. Now, the Braves are top 3 in starters ERA, which is great. That is definitely great. However, when you look at when you just look at the games, you don't get a feel for the pitchers truly dominating. You just don't. I mean, you can look at Elder's last start and you're like, damn, this guy can lose his control at any moment. You know, any pitcher can lose their control at any moment, but it just seems like he can especially lose control at any moment. And then you get guys like Ronaldo Lopez, who it seems that he's gaining his velocity back, which is great to see. However, his location was off big time. It's just when you see these guys force their way into bases loaded situations where the team that they're playing against is not exactly hitting their way into those positions, that's not a good look. That happened with Elder, that happened with Grant Holmes, that happened with Ronaldo Lopez. So something's got to change. Something has definitely have to change because what we see with the 5th starter, as we saw yesterday, is he's a 5th starter. I think he's doing phenomenal as a 5th starter. And he's going to get DFA'd once one of our pitchers comes back. And this is where Strider needs to come back and be a legitimate starting pitcher. Now, he seemed to have had a good spring. He ended the season last season looking like he was gaining back some of his form. He's still coming back from the elbow brace surgery that he had that took him out essentially all of the 2024 season. So we'll see how he's able to recover from that. However, the Braves are in dire need of starting pitching. And it's something that we've known since the beginning of the beginning of last year. I mean, if we're being honest, it just like I don't know how long that Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves can continue to rely on these guys that are essentially journeymen coming in and being able to, hold the rotation down. I mean, we saw what happened when Elder was put in the situation where he had to hold the rotation down. Did he give us innings? Yes, but he did not pitch well last season. It's a reasonable question to say that, like, I don't know how sustainable the pitching that he's currently doing is, because we've seen the way that he's able to pitch. And there goes a car that really needs a muffler. Nasty ass car. Anyway, that's my current worry. However, we're going into Sunday and we have our ace. Our legitimate ace, who's been our ace for the past 3 seasons. And with Chris Sale, we need him to get back into form. And I'm not worried about him getting back into form. I think he had a tough outing against the Angels last time out. And, he's a veteran pitcher where you expect him to, get back into being able to locate and being able to get the strikeouts that makes him so effective. Now, whether that means the Braves are going to win this game or not, I don't know. However, I am not worried about the Braves hitting. Did the Braves get shut out for the first time in the season? Yes. And that happens. Teams get shut out. But one thing that I noticed is that they took a very aggressive approach against this young pitcher. And it's a very good young pitcher. The last time he was out pitching, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Masick for the Guardians. He went 7 innings of no run, giving up no runs against the Dodgers. So, he's looking to be a great pitcher, a great young pitcher, and he has a really good changeup. And he got his strikeouts against the Braves. Now, what he also got were the Braves lining out and the Braves getting some good wood on the ball, and it just happened to go straight at people. In terms of how the Braves were swinging the bat, I mean, I can say I don't like how he was able to get into the, 7th inning with so few pitches. I think he definitely went into the 7th inning under 80 pitches, I think. So, I think that was part of the Braves hitting strategy that game, and it just didn't work. And that's okay. I don't think I disliked the strategy. It just didn't work that game. I think that there's going to be times where the Braves are going to need to go out and they're going to need to hop on pitches, and they've shown that they are willing to do that in other games this season, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But one thing I do like about this season, it does seem like these hitters are coming up with an approach. However, what I need these hitters to do is I need these hitters to stop using ABS. It seems like the current statistics show that hitters are not very effective at calling balls and strikes with this ABS system. I think part of the reason is because you only need a part of the baseball to nick the strike zone. So, like, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of balls that are being called strikes by ABS that, without the ABS system, would be called a ball and would be accepted as a ball. So, that's a little bit of what's going on, considering that only a piece of it. And the other part about that is that's what makes catchers calling the ABS system so much more effective, because in a game that is decided by so few inches, pitchers and catchers get a whole ball of length more than batters. And I think that's determining a lot of where these calls are going. But you've also seen a lot of hitters for the Braves be a little bit impulsive. I mean, Ronald Acuna has not been good at all with the ABS calls. I'm sure there's going to be times where he gets it correct. But at this point, I think he just needs to take the calls how they are, unless he has 2 strikes and unless he's about to get struck, unless it's being called for a strikeout. Because he's been calling it in situations where, you know, there's no strikes or there's 1 strike, and it's just not a good use of ABS. And, you know, when you think about the probability of the ball being a strike versus a ball, especially when it's being called a strike, it's just not a good look. It just doesn't make the most sense, and those challenges that you have are very valuable, and they can be used in different situations. Now, I'm not saying that every time that Acuna gets it wrong, that he's taken away from another time where the call would have absolutely been overturned in the Braves' favor. However, it's just, he's not being prudent about the use of it, and he needs to be a little bit more smart about it. And I hope that Walt Weiss is talking to him, and, you know, especially a hitter like that, he needs to learn how to use it better in situations that are actually going to benefit him more. Because so what if a pitch is called a strike and it's maybe a little bit off the plate and it's just the first strike or it's just the second strike? He's good enough hitter to still battle back, foul pitches off. The pitchers are still going to need to make a great pitch against him to strike him out. Now, I think Acuna is struggling to catch up to the fastball at this point, and that's fine. I think that's going to come as the season comes. You know, there's not going to be a long time where Acuna is going to be held to where he's being held. But, you know, I just think Acuna can have a few more at-bats where he doesn't need to worry about the strike zone and getting every pitch correctly called balls and strikes at this current moment. Now, I want to get one thing back to Walt Weiss. I love what he's doing with the lineups, especially with the lineups in-game. Yesterday, you saw him take out Mateo in a situation where Dom Smith came up for a pinch hit in a scoring situation, runner in scoring position. It didn't work out, but what he was able to do is he moved Yastrzemski to center. He moved Dubon to short, and he put Luke Williams out there in left because he knew that Luke Williams was not going to be coming up in a hitting situation. So, you know, you trusted his defense, as well as it gave you more more players later in the game that you can also use. And, you know, it's just the creativity of what he's doing with the lineup, with the pieces that he currently has, especially with Michael Harris being out. You know, he's on paternity leave. Congratulations to him. He should be back shortly, especially with the game being in Atlanta. I just love what Walt Weiss is doing with the lineups. He's going to continue to do things like that, and I think over the course of the season, he's going to get more calls correctly than incorrectly. He's going to put more people in position than not. And, the last thing I'll say before the rubber game of this series is that we need Heim on the bench. He can't hit. It seems that his defense is not good. He's going to get DFA'd as soon as Sean Murphy comes back. And it seems like Sean Murphy had a little bit of a setback with what things are happening. So I just hope that comes as soon as possible. But quite frankly, at this current moment, I'd take Chadwick Trump over Heim because he's just not getting the job done. So hopefully these roads get paved very soon. But otherwise, I appreciate y'all tuning in to Driving with Slip, and make sure y'all don't slip.